What's up, guys? Welcome to the MMA On Point live chat. How's it going? What is up? You guys know me. I am the owner of the channel. I guess both channels because we're on the Extras channel now. Welcome to the Extras channel. Thank you for following us. And we have the prestigious Pete Carroll. Welcome to the PT's Pigskin podcast produced by P3 Protein. I think that's the thing that we're going with. Although that's not true. We are not sponsored by P3, but had to go with it. There it is. Yeah, let's see that form again. Let's show you that spiral, that beautiful spiral. Oh my God. Yeah, the Pete's
quarter mile.
It's coming. It's coming. That podcast is coming. You can throw it clear over the mountains. Yeah, how's it going for you, Pete? You've had I don't know, how would you describe your week so far? You've had an interesting week, right?
Yeah, I think our country's remaining locked down until July. We've now had the longest lockdown in Europe, so very exciting in Ireland, basically.
So stoked about that. And then, of course, we've got our buddy Lawton here running the show behind the scenes, who's been working. Let's get everybody at home, give him a hand. We worked from 8 a.m. till 12 a.m. working on Balian's new breakdown piece.
Yes.
So that was a nice tag team thing. We also had the autopsy. We had the fight companion. And then yesterday you worked till about midnight again working on the Composer's Corner piece. So massive shout out. Everyone give this guy a slow clap.
It's been the longest, quickest 4 days of my life.
And I'm just about to throw some more fire on that. Throw some more wood on that fire later on this week, I believe.
It's coming back full steam Friday. So no, it's been good.
I'd say you hate pay-per-views. I'd say you're like, fuck this card. Every time there's a title on the line, you're like, I fucking hate this.
It's like, why does the UFC do so many events? Damn.
Yes. Yeah, so I've already said it. You know, Lawton's getting tomorrow off, and he's going to get the weekend off. So we're going to try to do our best to work on your new piece on Friday. But speaking of which, so announcement time. I don't think I've told anybody about this on our live chats. My visa has officially been approved to move to the UK. So we're looking at building a studio and everything. It looks like we triangulated where we're going to be. We're this close to signing at the place that we're going to be at. I don't want to provide any details about where it is or anything like that as of now, but just to give you guys a heads up. And so that means our next fight companion may be in person. I'm going to go over and visit and try to look at places to stay and things like that in the next couple of weeks, and that might coincide for April 24th. So just a heads up there, announcement time. Wanted to let you guys know about it. It's a big move for us, big move for me personally. We've been doing this channel for almost 4 years now. We started in August rather of it's about to be April, August of 2017. So I mean, time flies, doesn't it? So
Did the launch of this channel coincide with Maymac?
Yes. And that was our big break, was actually, I made a video talking about the knockdown of Paulie Malignaggi. That was our big one. It hit like 300,000 views.
Did it or did it not happen?
Yeah, exactly. So I went with yes. And luckily, most of the people who watched that video tended to agree. But yeah, that was basically what it was. And then Tom made a video where he actually found 5 boxers, including Evander Holyfield, that believed he could actually beat Mayweather. And so it made for an incredibly entertaining video, and that hit like 1 million views by the night of that fight. So, I mean, it was very, very lucky for us to have started in that month. I think if it was any other month, it probably wouldn't have started off that well, but it was still a slow climb. That was like the initial burst, and then it was just like we still had to, grind our way for the next few months. But, yeah, so there it is. There's the big announcement. The studio is moving forward. My move is moving forward. And we're going to be trying to do all kinds of crazy things, like have Pizzi come out through part of the week, have Balian, who you guys know that just did the breakdown, has done some of the videos. And then Tommy Toehold will do a face reveal. Okay, probably not, but that would be great. So with that being said, enough about the announcements and who the hell no one cares that we are. We're going to go ahead and move it on to the Kumite segment. So we got a bunch of things here. The big news this week, of course, is Nate Diaz being signed to fight Leon Edwards. So why don't you go ahead and kick us off there?
Yep. All right, so if you guys are familiar with this, we are going to rattle off kind of 5 topics with some backstory and a question/opinion. You guys in the chat are going to put Jason or Petey, whoever should take the first minute of their kind of quick rapid-fire topic. So right now, go ahead and put your votes in for Petey or Jason, and we've got the first headline of Diaz versus Edwards. So obviously that came out of literally nowhere. So what is your reaction to this announcement about this fight? So that's kind of what we're going to start off the day with, talking about that. So let's hop over to the chat. I kind of read that quick, so it might take a second to catch up. Oh, actually, wow. Petey, I think they're feeling bad for you since you're still in lockdown, honestly.
Thank you, guys.
You are smoking, Jason.
Prison.
Yep, that is 100% going to you, Petey. So congratulations. You might never be able to leave your house again, but you get to start off the Kumite Crunch today. So you got 1 minute on the announcement of Diaz versus Edwards and what your reaction is. You ready?
Yes.
All right, 1 minute starting now.
This is the most MMA booking of all time. Leon Edwards was on an 8-fight win streak. He got 3 fights with Hamzat Chimaev, a guy that wasn't ranked, cancelled. He goes in and fights Belal Muhammad, and it ends in the worst way possible for him based on his 8-fight streak. And somehow he's rewarded with a fight with Nate Diaz. These are the fights he's been calling out for 2 or 3 years, and then suddenly he gets it for absolutely no apparent reason. It's amazing, though. The reason why it's amazing is if Leon needs something, it's a big name value. And the thing that Nate brings that not a lot of people bring in the UFC at all is that huge superstardom. He has a cult following. And if Leon can make an impression on the fans against Nate Diaz, that gets him exactly where he needs to be. It puts him right into that title picture where he's yearned to be for so long. On the flip side, Nate Diaz gets to come in and beat one of the top welterweights in the world. And if he wins that fight, there's no doubt about it. He's one of the most marketable fights in the division immediately. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a title shot straight away. So it works for everyone. It works for the UFC, for Leon and Nate. Happy days.
Cool. All right. I love the happy days rap at the
closer,
end.
yeah. And then the menacing smile right after it. The haunting smile.
Cool. Good thoughts, Petey. All right, Jason, moving to you. Diaz versus Edwards. Give us your thought. You got 1 minute starting now.
By all conventional terms, this is a weirder shit fight, isn't it? It just totally came out of nowhere. I don't think anybody was talking about this being rumored or anything. It must have come together really quickly. This will be the first 5-round co-main event in UFC history, so it's also breaking ground in that way. I think it's a win-win for the UFC in a bunch of different ways. Just like you said, Leon Edwards, if he gets a win over Nate Diaz, he gets that star power, he gets that rub, and then all these people that have been saying he needs this title shot, he also now has an incentive for the UFC to make that fight happen with whoever that is. For Nate Diaz, what happens for him is if he wins, and however unlikely it may be, if Jorge Masvidal wins, we get this massive rematch now with an actual real title, not just a BMF title behind it. So it could be a really, really big fight for the UFC in terms of making money. Of course, Usman, it wouldn't hurt there either, but I think they would probably thrust Nate Diaz into that. My money is, of course, on Leon Edwards here.
Wow.
I'd just like to say that maybe a lot of people weren't talking about it, but this guy right here was talking to Leon Edwards about it 2 months ago. So,
Were you really?
You can now call me the Oracle.
Wait, no. Let me. How did that conversation go, Mr. Oracle?
Well, you can just jump on Twitter there and see the clip that's being shared out vigorously since the announcement, if you'd like. It has 7 likes.
Like, what clip? What clip is he talking about? Vigorously by those 7 people. We didn't say the vigor meant quantity.
You should have seen the way they hit the button was vigorous. That's what I was trying to say.
They were just like, ugh. Yes.
Because it was my family member, so I saw them literally pressing the button.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, congratulations to you. I think it's a bigger win for you than even the fighters in this case. So, yeah, there we go.
All right.
Good shit.
Well, we are moving on to the second headline for the Kumite Crunch. So same thing, chat. Put your vote in the chat right now for Jason or Petey. We've got the headline welterweight. So what happens now with the top unmatched fighters at welterweight in the aftermath of these 2 money bombs going off in the division? Jorge is fighting for the title, and Diaz against the number 3 guy in Edwards, obviously. So that's kind of what we're talking about right now. So let's jump again to the chat, see where the votes are. My thing is loading slowly again, as always.
That's what she said.
See, we got tied right now. Jason's got the lead. Let's give it a few more seconds. See if we can get any.
I think we need to change the rules on these going forward. Like, whoever wins the first time, it automatically goes to the other one. Because I feel like it's obligatory. If PT wins the first one, everybody's like, oh, we'll give it to Jason this time. So then it's a real
Own the
vote.
channel, change the rules. Own the channel, change the rules. You know? Sorry, no box office.
Yeah, man.
He's got a
Well, it is.
That is a fact. I'm glad that you've appreciated the pecking order here, and you'll do as you're told. So there you go. As Connor said to that random guy who was bringing out the bag of money at the Mayweather press conference, to go back to that, saying that's when the channel started. I guess it's just in my mind. Do as you're told, bitch. So there we go.
Well, we are going to give it to you because it was about tied, but we're just going to give it to you because the comments are coming in a little slow. So, Jason.
Fight the power, people. Fight the power.
So, Jason, you got 1 minute. Thoughts on the welterweight and what happens. So, you got 1 minute starting now.
Yeah, this is a weird place for the division to be in. Exactly that. It's been 2 money bombs thrown into the division and just totally changed how the rankings work. 8-fight win streak for Leon Edwards. Now he's up against Nate Diaz, who is not on a streak whatsoever right now, and is really a 155er. It's very strange. But what I do think makes the most sense right now, I've already said this on Twitter for people who follow me there, you have to make Colby versus Wonderboy. I think it's the fight that makes the most sense. They're 2 guys that shouldn't be on the shelf for as long as they have been already, even though it hasn't been quite that long. But we're talking about, if they wait for these guys, we're talking 7-8 months for each of them. Let's keep the division active and let's keep it moving forward. And that is the next person who would be in line potentially after Diaz versus Leon Edwards. More so for Leon Edwards' case. I think he deserves the title shot already.
10 seconds.
So I think we go with that. And then we probably do Gilbert Burns, maybe up against, I don't know, maybe Michael Chiesa. He won't fight Vicente Luque. They're like practically brothers, you know. So that was what I would go with. That's how we solve it.
Cool. All right. Beatsy, same topic. Welterweight. What's going on? You got 1 minute starting now.
I kind of get the feeling that Colby Covington has played himself here because he refused the Leon Edwards fight. And now with Leon facing Nate, he has this opportunity to go on and make a huge impression in the sport and maybe skip the queue. I think we talked about it before, Jay. We thought Colby was holding it out because he thought that no matter what happened in that title fight, he would be the obvious fight coming out of it because he has the story with Usman, because he has a story with Jorge Masvidal. But I feel as though this whole Nate Leon thing could have obscured that. Gilbert Burns and Wonderboy might make sense. I mean, these are guys that need to fight. We need to see Wonderboy fighting. He's another guy like Edwards who's been plaguing for a fight. He's been dying for one. He keeps asking for the top contenders. So they really need to sort that out for him. But I think the biggest story there will be what happens to Colby. Have the UFC finally got fed up with this guy not fighting the top contenders and sitting it out? It's going to be very interesting for me how that plays out, to be honest.
Cool.
I think I like the Colby fight for Wonderboy a bit more just because they're both on win streaks. Gilbert obviously just lost, so it's a big move for Chiesa. But it should be a good fight for Gilbert Burns, who has way better ground credentials than somebody like Chiesa. I think that's why I'm leaning for those. But you could mix and match that in any way if you wanted.
Absolutely, but I was just wondering, the fact that Colby said no to Leon, I think we both agree that Wonderboy is a bigger name than Leon Edwards right now. But is it big enough for Colby? Because I think from his perception, no matter what happens in that title fight, he has to go next. So would he take the Wonderboy fight, do you feel, if he was offered it?
I feel like he would resist it. The thing that I like about it for him, so if I were to look at it from his team's side and from his own personal interest side of it, it should be a very winnable fight for him. You know, I would probably favor him in that fight. It's something classic. Take him to the ground. And, you know, Woodley only tried to take him down like one time, and he was able to get him down in the, the back-to-back fights with Wonderboy. And, I think it's there for him. Wonderboy, though, when I interviewed him, was just like, I'm going to destroy this dude's body. He was like, I'm not worried about the takedown whatsoever. I'm training wrestling like crazy right now. And I have more in my back pocket than people think I do. So I want to see him try that out. Like, actually, if you go back and watch our video, shout out to our own content here. But if you watch him, the way he talks about Colby, I think that's the least nice Wonder Boy there's ever been, the way he talks about Colby. Maybe if they do book that fight, or maybe we should just do this anyway, release like the full unedited, uncut version of him talking about him for about 5 minutes or so. He's not very kind to Colby, and he's kind to everybody. You know, it's like, why you gotta be so mean, man, to like Woodley and all that stuff. I think there's a lot of heat behind that fight that a lot of people are underestimating that would come out if it were booked. So I think it's good for Colby because it's a style matchup for him that should work out really well for him. And Wonder Boy seems to think he likes his odds in that fight too. So I think it's a good matchup.
I'm sold. You've sold me on it. Why not?
Yeah, I'm on it. I'm on it.
Cool. All right. We are going to move it on to our third headline. We got, okay, so same thing again. Or wait, no, are we implying the new rule?
No. We'll apply it next time.
Okay. So we're still going to vote for these last three topics. Next week, we'll kind of change it up just to keep the flow a little smoother. So, chat, same thing. Votes in the comments right now. Jason, Pizzi, who should take this next headline of Vettori versus Holland? So, reportedly, both guys have accepted, but nothing appears to be official just yet. Is this the right fight to make, or should Vettori wait for Till? So that's what we're going to kind of talk about. So hop it back to the chat. Good to see you, Nicola. JTvo, as always. I see you guys right now. Jason is actually leading this charge.
This is bullshit.
Yep. Jason is going to take this one.
Sweating is horse shit.
Sweating is horse shit. So, Jason, you got 1 minute headline Vettori versus Holland. Should he wait, or is this okay if they actually both accepted? So, you got 1 minute starting now.
Yeah, obviously the biggest upside here is for Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland had a heavily criticized performance only just a couple of weeks ago, and it looks really kind of bad on his end where he's left the taste in fans' mouths. So I think it's a really good opportunity for him to jump in. Vettori, there's definitely way more risks. I think on his side of things, he's looked better than he's ever looked before. He's on a real surge in the division. He's the one guy to actually win a round over Israel Adesanya outside of Gastelum in the past few years, which is a huge coup for him. So I think what probably happens here is Kevin Holland pushes for it. Vettori is okay to accept it, maybe publicly, but behind the scenes, I don't know how that looks. I don't know why it's not signed because I don't know. What are we waiting for here? But I think it's a great matchup. I think it's a great consolation. This is the first fight on ABC. They need a big name. Kevin Holland is about the best you can do on short notice. He's already accepted it, so I hope they do it.
Cool. Landed the plane at a minute.
Bada boom.
All right. Pizzi, same thing. 1 minute, Vettori versus Holland. Give us your thoughts starting now.
I just want to say before we get into Vettori v. Holland, what about Vettori's misfortune over the last 18 months? I think the guy has had 7 fights cancelled. 7 fights just pulled out from underneath him. And then the fights he's had, like against Hermanson, he came in on short notice. So he's very familiar with the situation that Kevin Holland will come into. I do agree with Jason that this is a perfect opportunity because I felt Holland took a big knock in that performance against Brunson. A lot of criticism. A lot of people didn't like the way he was talking or whatever while the fight was going down. I personally didn't mind that. I just thought he got beaten emphatically. But the thing I'll say is, I think Vettori has a very similar skill set to Brunson. And I think it's impossible for me to say, like, in this short amount of time, Holland's going to go in and do a number on someone like Vettori. Like we said it when Masvidal fought Usman. It's a win-win situation for Masvidal. I don't think this is a win-win situation for Kevin Holland unless he has his hand raised. So, difficult task for Holland, I'd say.
Cool.
Yeah, he's going to have to go for broke in a fight like that, I think. Like, he's really going to have to try to score that knockout. And to be fair, he was trying it against Derek Brunson. There were a couple moments where, like, I remember he was walking against the cage with his arm down, and then he would just, like, surge in with a huge right hand. Derek Brunson would just read it from a mile away. So, easier said than done. But, yeah.
But I'll say, the thing is, like, the thing that's crazy, right? We know that when you're taking a fight on short notice, you don't have time to fester on it. It doesn't take over your mind. You can't really procrastinate about it. But athletically, you can't be 100% on those short notice fights. And if Vettori wasn't 100% against Hermanson, God help Kevin Holland, because he looked outrageous that night. And Hermanson is one of the most underrated fighters in the division, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then Derek Brunson, as a result, it's like, when are people finally going to start giving him his credit after these two? I mean, prospect squashes that he's had.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that for him because, I mean, everybody remembers the Israel Adesanya loss, but I think he's a smarter fighter than he was back then. I mean, you go back to like when he was on this win streak of just KOing people back to back, like the Uriah Hall one, for instance, that was in the string of all these different knockouts that he had. I think it was about 3 or 4 different knockouts back to back. And then he's kind of smartened up his game since then. And I think that was towards the tail end of that with Israel Adesanya. I think he's a much better fighter than he was back then. And you're seeing it because he's killing absolute killers. Like he just is. Great wording on my part there. But
he's like, I love that when a guy like him, like the UFC, when they make those matches, like him and Shabazian and, him versus Kevin Holland, they're basically saying without saying, like, we're going to use you to build this guy's name. And then he goes in and, has his way with these two guys. It's an amazing story. It's him raging against the machine in a way. You know what I mean? He's going to say, like, I'm still here. And I think they should keep matching him like that against upcoming prospects because it's a narrative unto itself now. And it's really intriguing for nerds like me who just mull over the fight game all day long.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely crushing people out there. But, yeah, great stuff. So...
Cool. All right, moving it on to our 4th headline. So, again, who should take this one? Jason, Pizzi, put it in the chat right now. We got the headline of Pitbull versus Sanchez. So, Bellator's most prestigious champion and double champion is putting his featherweight title on the line against Emmanuel Sanchez in a rematch stemming back all the way to 2018. Do you see Sanchez being able to turn the tide this time? So that's kind of the final thought question that we're going to go.
That's not how I wrote that question. All the way to 3 years ago. Come on, I didn't say that.
Oh, I was okay.
Lon's over here.
I try to make it not.
He's trashing my shit.
I'm trashing.
They fought each other in 1958. See,
all the way back to 1958. So I try to make it a little more personable, so I'm not just reading a script.
You're so personal. Yeah, good job.
To the chat, who we got? We got 4 for Jason, 4 for Pizzi, 2 for me. So
go on, lot.
Dude, no, this is not the question for me at all. Pizzi just took the lead with 5, so we are going straight to you, Pizzi.
There we go.
So it's good to be back. It's good to be back.
All right, Pizzi.
I thought you hated me.
Yeah, you got 2 in a row. You lost it. You're back, baby. You're back.
Hey, let's not get into the stats, Lawton. All right, relax. Let it happen.
Quick, go quit emphatically like his last status on Twitter. Yeah. Quick, help him. I
want to see 8 likes when I get out of this shit.
All right, Pizzi, 1 minute. Pitbull versus Sanchez. Do you think he can turn the tide? You got 1 minute starting now.
In short, no. I don't think Emmanuel Sanchez can turn the tide. Like, I think if you aren't excited about Patricio Pitbull, you need to get excited. This guy is one of the greatest fighters in the world. He should be right in that top 5 pound per pound list combined with all promotions. What this guy has done between 145 and 155 is absolutely amazing. Like he's knocked out the dude that's fighting for the UFC lightweight title, and he's the champion at featherweight and lightweight. That's pretty incredible. And time after time, we see him match with these guys, up-and-comers, like he did with Pedro Carvalho recently. A lot of people are kind of doing that revisionist history of Carvalho like he wasn't a threat. This guy was just killing prospects before he got to... prospects and veterans before he got to Patricio, and then Patricio just basically one-punch KO'd him. The guy is outrageous. He's must-see TV. I think him versus AJ McKee is the fight we all want to see, but of course I'm going to watch. I think he's amazing. And Emmanuel Sanchez, I think he might get finished this time as opposed to it going to a decision.
Wow. All right. Switching over to you, Jason. Give us your thoughts. Can Sanchez turn to tide?
No.
1 minute starting
You
now.
don't tell me what to do. I run this shit. No, so I actually went back and watched the first Emmanuel Sanchez fight. It's one of the most underrated fights of 2018. It absolutely is. Sanchez, outside of him and Weichel, hasn't lost. So I'm looking at his record here since 2015. Guys had a hell of a tear. And if you watch that first round, dude, he almost KO'd Pitbull. He straight up almost KO'd him. And all the way to the 5th round, he was throwing spinning heel kicks. And he was a bit more gassed than Pitbull. And Pitbull really did start to take over, blooding him up. But he's dangerous. He's super dangerous. I definitely do think he has a shot here. Of course, I'm picking Pitbull on this one. But I think it's a fantastic matchup. It's just another matchup in their featherweight Grand Prix. So we still got all these other matchups out there like AJ McKee, who's looking phenomenal. I think it's very exciting. It's a great, great card. And, I'm very excited about this fight, actually. It happens on Friday. So, showtime. There it is.
Showtime. Cool. All right, y'all. We are going to move it on to the 5th headline that will wrap up the Kumite Crunch. Same thing, chat. Last one, I believe it is 2-2, if I remember correctly. So, this is the tiebreaker. So,
2-2.
Jason or Pizzi, put it in the chat. This is for all the marbles, as they say. So, we got the headline, Poirier versus McGregor 3. So reports came out yesterday that this fight is nearly official for July 10th, International Fight Week, traditionally. Now, Conor is calling for a McGregor belt to be made for this fight. We knew it was coming, so what are your thoughts on this one? So that's kind of what we're doing. Let's jump to the chat. Jason,
Pizzi's got it.
Pizzi. Oh, yep.
It was just, I think you won by 2 votes on this one. I was keeping count here. I'm very
I
upset.
can't trust you. I need an independent adjudicator if I'm going to believe these statistics, to be honest. But, thank you.
All right, Pizzi. Start off the final topic, Poirier McGregor 3. Give us your thoughts on everything that goes with it. You got 1 minute starting now.
I mean, this McGregor belt thing, it's even hard for us to talk about it because it's the type of thing that absolutely no other fighter in the UFC would be allowed to make it happen. Like, I know we had the BMF title, but that wasn't the Jorge Masvidal title. I know it's probably gone on to take that name, but no other fighter on the UFC roster could ask for something like this and get it. So I don't know if he's going to get it, but I wouldn't rule it out, as ridiculous as it sounds. What happens if Dustin Poirier wins? Oh, he is the Conor McGregor champion? What? But yeah, I mean, the fight is great for International Fight Week. Despite, I think, hardcore fans kind of feeling there has been a conclusion drawn in that fight, in their last fight with the calf kick KO. I think a lot of people be interested. It will bring a lot of casual eyes. So it makes sense. I don't know anything about Conor's preparations at the moment. I think he's in Dubai or somewhere like that. But looking forward to seeing it again. You'd have to put your money on Poirier.
Nice.
Great stuff.
All
It
right.
was a calf kick KO. I'm glad you called it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes,
Good.
yes.
Separated him from his senses.
It's wonderful.
All right, Jason, 1 minute, Poirier McGregor 3 and the McGregor belt. Give us your thoughts starting now.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it now. I think this would be the worst selling McGregor pay-per-view since probably 189, which isn't bad. It's still fucking phenomenal. That was estimated at 900,000 buys, but it might be the first one that he does under 1 million buys for quite a long time. What was that? 2015 now? Jesus, has time flown by. So I think it'll sell quite a bit worse because, honestly, why is this the 5th question on here? I guarantee you half the people are complaining that we're even talking about it right now. People are not into this fight. They're just not. And I think it will be an exciting fight. I think the McGregor fans will always be there, as they always are. But I think Poirier has options right now. And I get that it's a money fight. It might sell a few 100,000 more pay-per-views, which is nothing to scoff at. That's a lot of money. But I don't think it means what it used to mean. And it's on Conor to prove us all wrong right now. He's on a skid, and he needs to prove that he really is championship level now.
Cool. All right. I'd like to read 2 comments that I thought were funny. Clayton Martin said, "Come on, Pizzi, his calf was a balloon." Thought that was pretty funny. And then Zach Batista said, "McGregor lost to an illegal calf kick." obviously.
It's legal.
I mean, ban it. Unless an Irish man has a belt around his waist, ban every technique that makes him lose a fight. I think everyone's all right with that. I think everyone agrees. Me and Dana talked on the phone. He said, I completely agree with you, mate. That's what he said.
We got to level the playing field, right?
He wasn't motivated for the fight, but he was. That's what Dana White has said to me, and he's been pretty clear about that. You know?
Yeah.
Before the fight, he said he was motivated, and said after. He's been very clear about that.
I mean, it was just that goddamn Manny Pacquiao constantly calling him and saying, don't prepare for that fight. Dustin Poirier isn't good. And he was like, oh, yeah. And then that happened. The illegal calf kick. Disaster for the sport.
I love you pointing out the absurdity of that. It's like, Poirier is now the Conor McGregor champion. Because if you name it the McGregor belt, like, what the fuck is that? It doesn't make any sense. Poirier
He is the former interim lightweight champion and the current Conor McGregor champion.
So does that mean he gets all of the claims that Conor's had towards being the pound-for-pound GOAT of all time?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think... I don't know about that because Conor clearly is the greatest fighter who's ever walked the earth.
That's right. That's right.
It's gonna be hard.
Amen, brother. I don't know. It's a weird one. I mean, I really... I don't know. It's hard to gauge, but I would say from the hardcore fans that there is just so much less interest in this one. Like, I feel like everyone's kind of rolling their eyes at it.
What is going to be the ridiculous talking point ahead of this one? Because the last one was the yacht. How does he one up the yacht? How is he going to arrive in a fucking helicopter and just stay in the helicopter all week, just floating over everyone? This is where I'm staying.
Hey, man, he's motivated this time. Well, I do want to point out before we move on, maybe we could jump back into the Diaz stuff versus Leon Edwards just a little bit. But I do want to point out that this Bellator card is flying way too under the radar for how good it is. Some of it, I mean, it's a bit on that prospects level, but Usman Nurmagomedov 11-0. You know, obviously relation to Nurmagomedov, Habib, as everyone knows who that is. Neiman Gracie versus Jamin Jackson. Neiman Gracie is one of the real true successors to the Gracie family that's actually doing some great stuff in MMA right now. He's had some tough losses. I mean, he's only had that one loss. What was that? It was to Rory, right? It was a great fight up until that happened. He held his own in that fight. And then where is the big one? Actually, he's on the prelims, dude. Magomed Magomedov is on this card. Yeah. 17-1-0, and he's got the trilogy that we would all hope to see down the line with Jan, right? Or am I just making that up? Nobody wants to see that. How could you
people who were there that night in ACB thought Jan won that fight. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I felt like it was immortalized in the lead up to this Aljo fight, where the only loss of Piotr Jan's career, he struggled greatly against Magomed Magomedov's takedowns. And you're like, yeah, but he has an argument that he won the fight as well, and it was how many years ago? So
2016.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like a lot of people made a lot more of that. I've even talked to officials who are like, that was a joke decision. It should have been done again. Nobody understands how this happened. There was something controversial that happened in the last round of that fight. I think a point was taken from Piotr Jan for something, and that basically cost him the fight. And it just felt very wrong by everyone who was watching the fight, and especially some officials I spoke to after the fact, judges who were like, the point taken was absolutely ridiculous. And I think even some of the rounds, they were debatable. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Even still though, you know, just to have that attached to your name and you're on the Bellator prelims, I feel like that's kind of a miss. I feel like he should be on the main card. Absolutely. Because I mean, they could build that guy up if he wins this fight. Yeah.
Should be singing it. You know, like he should be telling everybody.
That's a big, big, big name to have on your prelims. And
imagine how good it would be for them if Chandler wins a lightweight title. And they're like, well, our guy... Sorry, we've got champions at a guy who's not even contending for the belt at 135 that bet you're a guy who held your belt. And then your lightweight champion, yeah, our featherweight and lightweight champion beat him as well.
That's a big night.
And then if Vadim Nemkov goes in and beats either Johnson or Romero from that division, like it's all very good optics for Bellator.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it feels like it's flying under the radar way too much. I've not hardly heard anybody on my timelines talking about it on Twitter or anything like that. Not a whole lot of people have been talking about it. So I did want to put a bit of emphasis on there. And if anybody wants to talk about that, let me know. But yeah, I guess kind of bringing it back to that headline thing about Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards. So what did you say on Twitter, by the way? Because I am curious about that. You saw this coming?
It's a clip of Leon talking about it because I asked him 2 months ago.
Oh.
With Diaz, I was like, one of the guys who could do everything for you that isn't in the conversation right now is Diaz, and I think I agree with Leon on this. On paper, he's an easier fight for him than anyone really there in that top cluster, like Colby, Usman, or Masvidal. Like, I mean, Masvidal's beaten Diaz. Like, it's an easier fight for Leon than any of those dudes, and it maybe more emphatically get his name out there because it is Diaz, a cult icon within the sport. And he basically said it's easy. I think like him or Colby is the easiest fight. I don't know if I agree with that. And he said it will be an entertaining fight because he's a striker. We can go in there and we can strike and we can put on a show. So that's how I feel it will go. I think it's going to be two lads slugging it out.
Yeah. Oh, so like, I guess it would have to be on the feet that, Diaz obviously has great jiu-jitsu, but we've seen Leon Edwards look really good against the likes of Gunnar Nelson. Cowboy I wouldn't necessarily put on the level of Diaz on the grounds, but I don't know. It felt like he should have gone for that when they did fight to, make a throwback to Diaz versus Cerrone. But
and against Dos Anjos, right? Like there was moments there where Leon was dominating the passages on the ground. That's all huge. Like the Gunnar Nelson thing, I can remember him before he fought Gunnar. He was like, "Trust me, like I'm not afraid of the ground at all against Gunnar Nelson."
No.
I was like, okay, Leon. We'll see about that, buddy. And then, sure enough, every time I went to the ground, he was always in control. Never felt like he was in trouble. Like, and Cerrone, like, is a great catch submission artist. Like, I don't think he has the all-around grappling of some of these guys, but he's amazing at catching subs. Like, he's very quick. He has a great guard. And again, Leon wasn't in trouble there. So
yeah.
The only way I see this hitting the ground is if someone gets knocked down and they're chasing it to the ground to finish. That's the only way I see it happening.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's the Diaz way of doing it. And Leon Edwards wouldn't be afraid of that. I think that's really interesting. So let me ask you guys this. And somebody's actually already asking about one on TNT. That's also flying under the radar. Of course, that'll be happening Wednesday next week. A lot of really interesting.
It will be finished by the time we go on air, right?
What's that?
It will be finished by the time we go on air with the live chat.
Oh, are they not doing it local time? I haven't even looked at what time it's going. I thought they would do it because it's on TNT. I thought they would do it for American time. Maybe it's not. Let me ask you. I definitely think we should talk about one championship. I think Adriano Moraes, who's, of course, the champion at flyweight there, is going up against DJ. I like his chances a lot better than it would seem on paper because, Demetrius Johnson is Demetrius Johnson, but we can talk about that in a second. I'm not saying I think he's going to win, but it's kind of similar to the Sanchez versus Pitbull one where people just don't know as much about Moraes, but I think he's got a lot of attributes, man. You want to talk about attributes. He's about 5 inches taller than DJ. He's crazy rangy. This is the thing I don't get about one championship's weights because they keep saying that nobody's cutting weight. What's that? Are you having trouble?
I was like, nobody understands these one weight stuff. Nobody understands. I don't have a clue what's going on. Man.
Yeah. So so we might as well jump into that. I do want to see if anybody was, kind of picking either Pitbull or Nate Diaz against Leon and what the cases were there to kind of see if there were underdog opinions on that one. But yeah, as it relates to this one, so it's 135 pounds is their 125 equivalent because they have gotten rid of actual weight cutting practices and now they use hydration tests. And the thing that is so sus to me about that is DJ, when he fought, so he's fought Wakamatsu and Danny Kingat. Danny Kingat almost submitted him, by the way. I think it was in the first or second round. He had some really close rear naked attempts on him, and that was when they fought in the ring. So if that helps anybody jog their memory of it. Dude, like, this guy is way bigger than them. 5'8", and he has wins over those guys too. I don't know if he fought Wakamatsu, but I know he's beat Danny Kingat. And the guy's just a big fucking guy for 135. Really huge. And he's not, like, rail thin. It's like you look at Holloway. Holloway is extremely tall for 145, but he's very, very skinny. And you saw that when he went up to 155 and fought Poirier. We're not looking at that with Adriano Moraes. It's going to be very interesting to see those two face off. It's 5'3" versus 5'8". There's going to be kind of all these crazy reach differences. I think DJ's in for a hell of a fight. I think he should win it, but it's a tough fucking fight.
It's happened with every single UFC fighter that goes across. Sage Northcutt, Eddie Alvarez, Demetrius. Every time we see them in there, they're dwarfed by their opponents. I just don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, if you have all this weight cutting stuff sorted out, how is there a physical disparity in size between the guys coming over from the US as opposed to the guys who are already on the one championship roster? Like, is it because they know how to game the system? Is it because, like, I just don't understand how two guys can look so different and be like, we're all 100% hydrated.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, you know.
Brandon Vera makes light heavyweight, no problem. Looks like he's twice the size of freaking Anlan Sang. He had a 70-pound weight advantage over him, and he used wrestling, sumo-style wrestling. I'm making fun of the hyperbole. He's not that much bigger than Anlan Sang, but he's a lot fucking bigger than him still, you know.
Well, forget all those other fights. Rug is fighting. And if you don't know who Rug is, maybe we can help you out with that. Maybe. We don't know yet. Maybe we can help you out with that.
Working up something.
But this is a guy who has taken the whole sport by storm. Since his debut in November 2019 with Aries, this guy is from a Senegalese wrestling background, which is the biggest sport in the country. It's bigger than professional soccer, which is huge in Africa. This guy is the king of Western Africa when it comes to wrestling. And then he went on to fight in lutte avec frappe, which means fighting with strikes. And when you get into that kind of thing, you're talking about the fighters who compete in this are on the billboards all around the cities, in Dakar, all this kind of stuff. It's not actors, it's not movie stars, it's the Senegalese wrestlers. He and guys like Yakini and Bombardier, they were all like, they're called the king of the arena. It's basically like the status of the GOAT. Right now, you are the greatest that we have. And now he's transitioned into MMA. And the guys he's beating have like 10 times the experience of him in the sport. He's coming in as a complete beginner to MMA and doing incredible things like power slamming Bokashu out of a Kimura.
Yeah.
And then,
so we actually have the link to that. I'm going to have Lawton open that for us real quick, because like that Kimura attempt that he slams him out of is just like a straight feat of strength. It looks like one of those things that somebody would do at a demonstration for the world's strongest man type kind of thing. Like, all right, now let's see if you can do this ridiculous feat of human strength. So he's about to pull it up here. This is Rug. Here, they're trying. He should be in a lot of trouble here. A lot of fucking trouble. He's got the arm isolated. Look at this. Pops it out. Should be in a ton of trouble. Look at him. Just get up and just... What? Who does that? This guy's fighting next week.
Yeah, and I mean, the guy he's fighting there, Sofiane Bokashu, was one of Tom Aspinall's last opponents before he went to the UFC. Like, he's no joke. He's had 10 professional fights or something like that. Then he obviously took on Engelini. Is that his name? Alan Engelini, and his name is his one debut. Another monster, a striking phenom, and Pricey did the same thing. And this will be his third fight. I may have talked to him about this opponent, and I said, Rug, is this the biggest test of your career so far? One word answer: no. That was the only part we didn't need to translate. I was like, all right, fair enough.
That's amazing. That's such a great answer.
But like, if you think about it, right, guys, we have Francis Ngannou, we have Kamaru Usman, we have Israel Adesanya, all these huge forces coming from that region of world, the continent of Africa. And then you have this guy who taps into the actual culture, folklore. His ancestry is within this Senegalese wrestling. This guy is an obvious choice for the UFC if he can hold it together. I'd be surprised if I wouldn't be surprised if he's like a Cyril Gane who's signed at like 3-0, 4-0. I really wouldn't be surprised, because the guy is a behemoth. He's an unbelievable athlete. That's clear. He's been training since he was a child, man. His grandfather was the champion of these arena fights. Like, it's an unbelievable story. It could be a movie as well.
The problem is they'll just have to trade another pound for pound great to get him to one, to get him away from one, rather. That's great.
That's it.
But yeah, so yeah, we're definitely hyped on that fight, and it is falling under the radar. I think there's so much going on this week, and then of course we'll have a ton of time to talk about that on Wednesday next week. There's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, I don't want to say anything more than that because I was about to spoil something I can't actually say, and there's some NDAs involved. But great stuff going on. Let me read some of these super chats here. Jose Gomez, would you guys think that the organizations involved, UFC, Bellator, ONE, have more to gain than to lose from cross-promotion super fights? Yeah.
UFC definitely have more to lose.
Yes. Yeah.
Like we see Bellator actually do this stuff. They go to Rise and they're happy to cross-promote. KSW have said they'd be happy to cross-promote with the likes of Bellator. The thing the UFC are trying to do is hold their fighters on a pedestal way over all these guys.
Yep.
We're way above this. We don't want to. We've got the best fighters in the world. Why would we get your fighters involved?
Mm-hmm.
That's the impression they're trying to give off. So I think everybody else, to be honest, it's really exciting when that happens, right, Jay? Like just for us who are kind of nearly jaded by the sport at this stage, when they do these cross-promotional things, it's so epic. It's so much fun if you follow the different promotions. And I think that is their opportunity to really get the fan base involved. If they're doing something the UFC isn't, that's always the best way for me. That's why I love KSW so much. That's why I love Cage Warriors so much. It's just different. They're doing a different thing than the UFC. And the more different you can be when you're not the UFC, the better your chances of succeeding in the sport is, I believe.
Yeah, I fully agree on this. The UFC has way more to lose than those other places because they are putting on them on that pedestal that says we are the top organization on the planet. We have all the best fighters, the top 10 rankings, which obviously that's not true when you do include guys like Pitbull and their Horiguchi and their some of the really top talents. And so for them, I think what it really comes down to at the end of the day is bartering ability, bartering capability. If you have, like, when Fedor was there, that was probably the closest time it could have ever happened. But even then, the UFC wouldn't do it. So that kind of tells you what pressure there is. When he was the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, bar none, everybody was rating him as the best. They still wouldn't do it then. And they're not nearly as powerful back then as they are now. And that's the biggest thing. If other organizations, though, like Pride, when they were on top, oh, look who wants to barter now. Look who wants to trade their champions. They send Chuck Liddell and he gets smashed by Rampage Jackson and doesn't even make it to the final. They were willing to do it back then because they are underneath. And I think it just comes back to a simple power dynamic. Who's got the capability of being able to trade out? And there's actually a win there for them. There's a win-win situation when you have some that win and some that lose. The UFC stands to lose way more by doing these cross-promotion fights. Vadim beats, anybody in their top 5, it looks bad, let alone Israel Adesanya. He didn't win, guys. He didn't win. I still can't let it go. Jan Blachowicz. So, all these different things, and of course Pitbull coming over or something like that. They're not going to do it. But it's great for Bellator because Bellator looks really good. Ryzen looks really good. One, we have yet to really see do that. Cage Warriors, we were talking about KSW, all these other big leagues, I think they have something far more to gain. So I hope we see more of it. And if anything, what it does is it gives them bargaining chips for the fans to say, oh, watch our product. And it tells the fighters, oh, if I go there, I can fight whoever I want. I'm not stuck with whoever's in the league. If I want to get a rematch, I can get that. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but absolutely UFC doesn't gain what everyone else does. They gain way more than UFC does.
And right now, like if you put a gun to my head and you were like, who wins between Patricio Pitbull or Alexander Volkanovski, I'd be like, I don't know, man. I really don't know.
Super tough.
Like that guy is that good. Like, you know what I mean? It's that's something that like the broader fan base will never acknowledge. Like there is guys who can legitimately come in and beat these champions in the UFC, but how could you argue it after what Patricio was doing? You can't tell me that there is no way in hell that man could beat Alexander Volkanovski. You just couldn't.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point here because this happens every single time. So when Pride was on top, for instance, it was like, oh, UFC doesn't have a chance. Look what happened to Chuck Liddell.
Yeah.
And then within a year, the pound-for-pound rankings flip in almost every division to the UFC. Like, what happened to Shogun? He loses to Forrest Griffin. Forrest Griffin wasn't even anybody's consideration for the best pound-for-pound light heavyweight in the world, and He beats Rampage after that. It's like, what? Everybody's mind gets blown. Takanori Gomi was the best 155er. BJ Penn, in hindsight, it's like obvious now because they also fought in the past and BJ Penn had won that fight. But that happened there. Strikeforce comes over. Dude, we had Luke Rockhold as champion. We had DC, two-weight world champion. We had Pettis come over from WEC. It becomes obvious in hindsight, and we're now seeing this again with Chandler, where Chandler's fighting for the world title, and regardless if you think he deserves it now, he was at least next in line. He was very, very close for beating the guy that he just beat in the way that he did with Dan Hooker. Everybody was saying, oh, he's going to eat that knee. He's going to eat that knee. That nobody seems to learn their lesson on these things. Just because they're not in the UFC does not mean they suck. Eddie Alvarez gets fucking torched in his first fight and won championship against the guy who was like 172nd ranked Tapology welterweight. It's like, it's crazy when you look back at these historical precedences and people still don't seem to learn when it happens time and time again. And I think you bring up really good points. It's like, some of that is marketing. It just is. That the UFC has the best.
It's because the three letters UFC. That's it. Like, I mean, they look at the whole thing that's going on with John Jones right now.
Oof.
As far as they want it, the promotion is always bigger than the fighter. You can't make demands of us. We make demands of you. We say jump, you say how high. Unless your name is Conor McGregor. Here's a belt named after you, sir.
Yes. Yeah, very rare exceptions. This Nate Diaz fight feels like a rare exception to where, but I also feel like there's an obvious benefit for them in the situation. It's not like they're bending the knee. They have the possibility of setting up the BMF actual title fight if both of those get to their opponents. They have Leon Edwards getting the rub potentially, unless it's just a horribly boring fight. It's another, God forbid, eye poke finish. Knock on wood. Yeah, so anyhow, great question, Jose Gomez. That was a great question that you got us going off on a tangent with that one about super fights and cross promotions. Rapping Grandmas, that's a great username, $10. You guys think Rodtang will do well in MMA and maybe come to the UFC one day? He's only 23, but has went over 100 Muay Thai fights and plans to do MMA in one soon. I haven't really paid too much attention to his career, if I'm being totally honest with you. I don't want to bullshit an answer on that one. Do you have any thoughts on him? Have you looked much into his career?
Is he the Super Series champion over there? I think I've seen him fight, but I mean, look, like you only have to look at Gokhan Saki, guys who've come over from kickboxing backgrounds, man. This is a different sport, that's the...
Oh, Gokhan Saki.
It's very hard. Like, I'm not trying to say the guy isn't all-time great in his sport. It's just, this is a different game. How good does he look when he's lying with his back on the ground and he has a wrestler on top of him beating the shit out of him? What does he do then? You know what I mean? So you won't know until you know, I guess.
Yeah. I'm really bad, about anything outside of MMA. Like, we were talking about this where Chandler, when we did our last video with him, was telling me that he lived near some famous football player. And I was like, I have no idea who that is. And it's the Nashville team, and I live 45 minutes away.
Like Dan Marino? And you're like,
it's like I just don't know. Like outside of MMA, and sometimes there are prospects that you look at, like of course, like the Jordan Burroughs. We just had somebody else signed to one last week. Who am I thinking of? It's the obvious name. Guy just signed from BJJ. Biggest name, Gordon Ryan. Thank you. It's like the obvious name. I just couldn't think of it. But like, so there are things like that of course I'm in touch with, but. Yeah, it's kickboxing and boxing. I don't watch nearly to the extent that I do for this stuff. But I think it's a great point to bring up. He's already won champions, 135 Muay Thai champion. So, I mean, it's a natural progression. And that is one of the great things you were just saying about these organizations doing different from the UFC. That is one thing I really enjoy about one, the fact that they are not just doing MMA and they're putting things, it's like when Bellator was doing the multi kind of fielded arena by having a UFC MMA cage, a UFC cage. Are you fucking kidding me? An MMA cage, and then next to that, a kickboxing ring. I really enjoy that sort of thing, and I think it's something that one is doing really well here. And they are building up champions like that. Ryzen's doing it as well. Tension. Yeah, absolutely. So great points there. And, you would have to think you could do well, but it always comes back to, what does the jiu-jitsu look like? What does the wrestling look like? And can he stop a takedown for one? Will it look like the first Ngannou fight, or will it look like the second Ngannou fight with Stipe? It can go either direction. It really can. So I think it's a great point bringing him up.
Same as Rodolfo Vieira in the UFC. We just saw him getting submitted. When you add these variables, like Muay Thai is on the feet. When you add variables like where it's on the ground, and it's not just one way you can be finished on the ground. You can be finished a multitude of ways on the ground. You can just be cooked on the ground. They can just exhaust you on the ground. So by the time you stand back up, you don't have the juice to actually fire the way you want to fire. So it's too many variables for me to go, Tyson Fury would be great in MMA. You know, it's just, you're just not going to know until you see what he can put together.
Yeah, that's like one of the things. I would love to hear somebody ask, Ngannou about MMA and what it's been for for him now, because he wanted to just be a boxer. It took a long time for him to get convinced to do MMA and what he thinks about fighting guys like Tyson Fury and things like that. But I would say I would pick Tyson Fury in a boxing fight, but dude, I think Tyson Fury would get fucking wrecked in an MMA fight. Like, yeah, like he'd look great in a boxing match because he's that good. You know, he's obviously a phenom to watch. I mean, the kind of stuff that he's been doing lately. But it's a totally different world.
Fury would dwarf Ngannou. Like, I know he's not physically bodied up like Ngannou is, but the guy's 6'10", 6'11".
Yeah.
Like, and then his long arms, man, his arms are even long for his body. Like, it's crazy, dude. Like, there's not even an argument to me. Like, who would win that? If they booked that fight, I'd be like, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be excited about Francis fighting Tyson Fury. I'd be like, you are literally on the cusp of reigniting this whole heavyweight story here with Joshua, with Ruiz, with Dylan White, with Wilder, all these guys. Like, heavyweight boxing is really coming back in a big, big way. And if they were to do a UFC crossover for the sake of money, I'd just be like, boxing is fucked, you know?
Yeah. Good point.
Like look at Anderson Silva v. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Like, what are you, man? It's been. I just don't know. Boxing's just gone very strange, man. It's gone very strange.
When is, like, I was thinking about this the other day, and I didn't care to Google at the time. I was probably just working or something. I just wasn't thinking about it that much. But when even is that Askren fight? With
April 17th. Yeah, mate, it's been on my calendar. It's highlighted vigorously. So, I mean, what the hell? How did you not know that, man? It's the biggest deal in sports.
But I mean, that's going towards your point. So fair enough.
Has that not convinced you at all, Jay? Has that press conference moment, like, just from a narrative point of view, did that not compel you at all? Like, I didn't even set out to. I didn't even know the press conference happened, and then I found myself completely engrossed in Ben Askren's no-selling Jake Paul, to the point where Jake Paul's getting flustered and he's just going, when Askren's talking, you're like, mate, this is the levels to this. Like, Askren's in his head without even trying to be in his head. Yeah. And then when they're faced off, he just face palms him and walks away. And then Jake Paul awkwardly slaps him on the arse or something. Like what?
And then he does that like shitty body shot as he's walking away. So
I thought he spanked him. I didn't know what was going on. And then did you see the clip where he like walks into a room with 27 people and they're all like chanting something, and Ben's just sitting there with his wife,
he's just like,
and he's like, okay,
on the table.
Okay. This is great.
Well, because I know what a lot of people are saying is like, oh, you're talking about it, so this is good for them. Well, let me say something objectively bad for them. Everybody, don't buy that, because then that means that Jake Paul will go the fuck away and he'll stop calling out MMA fighters, because we will, as an audience, a collective audience, say, no, this is bullshit. You're going to see the highlights on Twitter. Don't buy it. Just don't buy it. You want it to go away? Don't buy it. I want it to go away. I'm not buying it. So there we go. I'm actively advocating people not to buy that bullshit. So,
well, at the same time, it's not bad for fighters. That's why it's a story. Ben Askren is making more money for this fight than he's made in his whole career. So it's like, from a sporting point of view, absolute bullshit.
Is he really? How much are they selling?
This bullshit is paying more than the UFC pay elite fighters. That's a problem.
You think so? How much are they selling it
Ben
for?
Askren said it. He said he's like, this is way more money than I've ever got for a fight.
Shit.
Yeah.
So Faith Rock, shout out to Faith Rocks. She says boxing makes 10 times more money than MMA does. That boxers do.
No. Yes. Promoters make probably less maybe
Way
than the
less.
UFC,
Yeah.
but they actually pay their fighters.
Yeah.
So,
Well, like the way it is, I mean, the distribution is it's like if you were to see like a graph, you would see like low level fighters being at the very, very bottom in boxing, and then all of a sudden it just shoots up like a motherfucker for the biggest guys. I would say it's much more of a slope for the UFC. It's still too low, and then it doesn't go as high as the boxing graph does, but particularly in the UFC, Bellator, One Championship, KSW, Cage Warriors, they definitely get paid better than people at their notoriety equivalent level in boxing. Boxing pays you very well at the very top, but it pays you very poorly. That's the thing. I mean, like if you want to, talk about it in terms of the way it is, I mean, it's capitalism 100%. Is what boxing really is. It's what you sell is what you get. In the UFC, you get a certain amount of notoriety that goes behind you that the UFC will give you regardless of what you sold on the door. And then, of course, if you are a big sell, then that will change. But there is that baseline level for a lot of fighters that they just make more. They just plainly do. It's just that their earning potential is not as high. The UFC by far makes more than boxing does overall. Yes, there is the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. Yes, there is the Mayweather-Conor fight. Obviously, there's, it's a bit different there because the UFC had their hand in that and made money in that. But those are the extreme rare cases. The Tyson Fury is the extreme rare cases. Tyson Fury is not selling as much as Conor Habib did. You know what I mean? It's not as big, generally speaking, 99% of the time. There's the unicorn fight out there, and that's about it.
And if you guys are on Twitter talking about John Jones is afraid of Francis Ngannou and he's using this money thing as a way to get out of it, you need to realize how big this moment is for the sport.
Yeah.
They need to pay John Jones. This is like Diaz and McGregor again. They collectively come together to barter for a greater cause, to increase the money. And if you think John Jones, I still can't get over this moment. Dana White sitting in front of the press and saying he wants Deontay Wilder money, and all the press, imagine that. The greatest fighter of all time in our sport wants to be paid the same as the third best heavyweight in the world. How ridiculous is that?
Yeah.
Like, I can't get over. I said something on Twitter about this, some bullshit like make the fight or whatever. And so many people are coming back to me like, oh, you got to go with the UFC on this one. You shouldn't be going with the UFC on fucking anything. They're not the guys getting in there and sacrificing their bodies, their brains for your entertainment. You should always be on the fighter side if you're a fan of this sport. Yeah. Anything else is frankly ridiculous.
Well, so I will say this to add some balance to that. I do think that it is good that the UFC has the structure that they do that boxing is lacking. So what Faith was saying, MMA fighters do make poorly at the bottom too. They do, but not as bad as boxing. You could have somebody at the same level, for instance, as, I don't know, Magomedov that we were just talking about, but they're making far less in a boxing fight. They just are. And it's just the median value is better in MMA. It just is. But that's the good thing about the UFC. That what allows that to happen is having a structure. So there has to be some sort of balance of the fighters need bargaining chips. They need their ability to do this. It is good to have an organizational structure. There's no doubt about it. It absolutely is good. Having the things like the Apex and things like that over the pandemic overall isn't necessarily... You can make all kinds of debates about whether they should be having public events and fights during... Well, not truly public, they are private, but having events and risking COVID, all these kind of things. You could have debates about that all day, but it's actually good for MMA. There's no doubt about it that it's been good for MMA. And the kind of things, the ability that they've had to make stars and build people up is far greater. There are way more stars in MMA than there are in boxing, objectively. It is objectively true. Are they making as much at the top? No. Boxers are making more. But the median value is there because of the UFC structure and their ability to put together these fights consistently and with an organizational power. For me, as somebody who doesn't watch boxing, somebody can correct me on this as much as they want. I can't figure out where the entry point is for boxing to understand where things are coming from at the highest level. And to a certain extent, that's true of MMA. That's true of the UFC, all these other organizations. Where are they coming from the lower tier regional organizations? But there's at least that tail that starts once they get into the UFC. There's that structure that begins there where you see someone start from obscurity to contendership. You know, you don't have that in boxing. You basically know when the boxers are big when they're already big, when they've already started to do well and they've already started to make a name for themselves. So that would be the biggest thing. Let me see what some of these comments are. If a boxer makes 100 for his first pro fight, an MMA fighter makes 500 for his pro fight, they are both making a loss. It doesn't matter at the bottom if one guy gets a few bucks more. Well, that's all we're talking about, isn't it, Faith? So it does matter. That's 5 times more the amount. And that scales all the way until you get to the highest levels, which is my point. So you might be making, as Alistair Overeem, who I don't think is a huge sell right now, and obviously got cut from the UFC, was making far more than a boxer at his level. Making far more. At that stage in his career.
I don't know about that.
You think so?
Povetkin against White last week, how much would you say they got paid?
Well, that's in the top 3 discussion. So we're talking about Dylan White.
Povetkin's not in the top. Dillian White or Povetkin aren't in the top 3.
No. He's right there. So White is right there behind those 3. So he's like right in that discussion.
With Ruiz, with all these guys.
Yeah.
He's there. Povetkin, like, literally probably can't fight any of those again because he pissed
already
off so many
lost to
times.
him.
And he's still making more money than Alistair Overeem.
Yeah, but they're right inside that
doubt.
actual discussion, though. You know, like,
I'd say he's making multiples of what Alistair Overeem's making, you know?
Yeah. I would say Alistair Overeem was pretty far out of that discussion, though, you know, where he was at.
Well, like, how much would you say Povetkin made compared to Francis Ngannou? Like, I'd say he's made more money than him for his last number of fights.
You think so?
Yeah, probably.
How much would you... Well, yeah, I mean, I guess we're speculating here, hardcore, but, like, how much would you say he probably made if you had to guess?
Over $1 million.
You don't think that Ngannou was making that?
I don't know. He wasn't the champion going into that fight.
Yeah.
So
I would say he made that.
I honestly don't think it's anywhere near.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the champions in these divisions. Like, what did Piotr Jan make for the Aljamain Sterling fight? Like, what? Nowhere near what these guys.
Yeah, we're not debating that at the highest level. We're not.
There's not even a title on the line in Povetkin v White.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
I just think, like, I don't think Alistair's point in his career going up against Volkov is comparable to Povetkin. Like, I think he's up there at the top of the division. If he had a win over Dylan White, he could be one of those guys fighting for a title within the next year or so, so long as he, you know, was beating guys like that. But, I mean, we're talking the top.
But he beat White already, and they had to do a rematch because he had no other options.
Yeah, because it was seen as an upset. Yeah. People didn't expect that. People thought White would win for sure. You know?
Well, I don't think it's comparable at all. Top of boxing, it's because of the Ali Act, because the promoter can't be.
Well, know, I think maybe you're missing my point here. At the top of boxing, you get paid way more. I don't think Povetkin is in the same place as Alistair Overeem. I think Alistair Overeem's more like, I don't know, the bottom end of the stack. You know, he moved himself back towards, I mean, I don't want to say the bottom end of the stack, the bottom end of the top 10, you know. Povetkin.
I'd say anyone in ranked boxing is getting paid a lot more than the guys who are ranked in MMA.
Do you have an example?
Like, I mean, in that top 15 cluster, like, I
don't even know who the top 15 would be in heavyweight boxing. Maybe that's a part of my problem with it, because it's
I think we've named them.
I think we've named like 7 names. We named Ortiz. We named Dylan White. We named Povetkin. Who else? Did I say
Joshua
Ortiz and Ruiz?
Wilder,
Yeah.
Vettori,
But that's already yeah. So like that's like 7. Like where do we go?
Ruiz.
Yeah. We've already named that Ruiz and Ortiz.
You said Ortiz.
And I said Ruiz and Ortiz.
Oh,
I said both.
Okay, let's move it on.
So that's
I mean, we'd have to start googling things here.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Like, you can name them in MMA. You can't in boxing.
Well, like, I don't cover boxing for a living. You know what I mean?
That's fair too. That's totally fair. But I feel like
I don't. I think it's way different. To be honest.
The top of it absolutely is. Yeah, there's no debate about that. It absolutely is different at the very, very top. But I don't know. JTva says PT is right. Chisora Parker. I've never heard of them, but I guess that's my casual.
Chisora, yeah,
Usyk. I've heard of Usyk.
Like one of these guys has to be comparable to Alistair Overeem's situation in the UFC. Like Povetkin's like 45. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I mean, Dylan White, who's he going to fight next? He's probably somewhere around that top 3, right?
Wilder, one of those guys, yeah.
Yeah, like I would say he's up there for sure. I don't think Alistair was there, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just totally wrong here. That's fine. But I do feel like absolutely at the top of the sport.
How much did Canelo get for his last fight? Like, I mean, he wasn't fighting a guy who was.
Well, we're not debating whether or not the top guys make more. We know that for sure. No one's trying to say that. I'm trying to say like the middle of the stack guys.
But it's not even a selling card. Do you know what I mean? Like this isn't a big fight, and he's getting like 35 million probably. You know
Which
what I mean? Like it's just for his last fight against Luke Campbell. Like that wasn't not Luke Campbell.
Canelo.
He fought an English lad in his last fight. It might have been Campbell, but I mean, the fight wasn't like people were going like, why is this happening? And he got 35 million for it or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
the top level
MMA,
is just so much better. There's no doubt about that.
They're only paying like they're talking like, I mean, we're literally talking about John Jones not getting 15 million quid here. Like it's bizarre.
Yeah. Fair enough. And Faith is saying that Overeem was ranked 6, so maybe Overeem was a bad point to bring up. I don't know. But anyhow, we know that at the top level of the sport, they make way more. It's the median level that we're talking about. That I would say the MMA structure is far better. Right?
I don't know.
Still don't know on that one?
Well, I mean, what's the median level? Like, what's a ranked strawweight getting? What's a ranked flyweight getting in the women's division?
Yeah.
Getting like,
well, forget that. Just somebody that's even just signed to the UFC, you know? Let's say before you even know them, I would say they're making more.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what is it, 10 grand minimum?
We should do an actual comparison of this and see what comes out. You know, it's like, what could we do to assess this and come up with some actual numbers on this? And just for what their announce pay is. I feel like you make more in the UFC for sure. There are egregious cases like Nate Diaz making 20 and 20 against Michael Johnson. So, I mean, there are definitely really bad abuses out there as well. Nate got, Faith, it was 20 and 20, not 10 and 10. But yeah, so I had actually said that before you wrote it. I don't know. Point is, I think if you're coming into the UFC, I think you're making more than you are as a boxer at that level. That's the median level. The median level is not the top of the top. You know, it's people towards the middle of the stack. People you probably don't even know because it's the median. It's more the average for a pro. I mean, even then. But let's look at it. No, you said 10 and 10, Faith. You didn't say 20 and 20. Oh, you meant to say 20 and 20. Okay. I thought you were saying that was your point. No, you are saying that. You said I added them together. I don't know. I'm just going to stop on that one because that is not what you were saying. Anyhow, so let's
What
move
a tangent.
What a tangent. I think it's a fun tangent, though. I mean, it is something that should be talked about. People should understand that there is an issue with pay in MMA, for sure. There's no doubt about it. But I do think we should put together. Yeah, people are saying, dude, I don't buy that. Boxers on average don't make more. I just don't buy that. I mean, there have been studies on this that have been done over and over again. Faye said I'm confusing her. You said, whatever. I'm just going to move on. She said that he made 10 and 10. He made 20 and 20. He did not make 10 and 10. Yeah. She said she added them together, though. That's not what she did. Why is Jones saying release me when no other promotion can pay what he get paid now? I bet you they would if they could. I bet you they would go for it. If they could go for it, I bet you they would. They would try to pay him at least, even if it's just $1 more and he's a happier person and they promise him more down the line, I think he would go for that. I bet you Bellator would try to do that. They could put on that fight with Nemkov. They would go for it.
I think everybody would try. Like, I mean, Rizin got Floyd Mayweather to fight Tension. Like, that cost millions. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I can't remember how much it was, but I think it was like 5 or 10 million he got for going in and just executing their biggest star.
What did Triller say?
John Jones. Huh?
Didn't Triller try to do something with Jones? They're the people that are put on the Askin fight.
They definitely would, right? Like, I mean, any of these guys.
Yeah.
Any of these guys.
They don't have any money.
A boxing promoter could put on a fight with Jones, like if he was released from the contract. Like, there is without a doubt this guy would get 15 million, I think, if he left the UFC.
Let's think
for something.
And Fedor in Affliction back in the day, people were chugging out the money here. Strikeforce when they took him. If you give those organizations the opportunity to steal one of the biggest fighters in the sport, they'll put up the cash for it because it is believed, at least. I will say the Affliction, they did not have much success with that. They only sold about 100,000 pay-per-view buys on each of those Fedor fights. And that is the strength of the UFC. It just plainly is. I think they would have sold easily over 1 million if they had Fedor versus Brock. Tim Sylvia was coming off of his championship run. Arlovsky wasn't too far off of it. Obviously, they weren't the biggest names, but you would have figured they would have sold more if that was... I mean, if you would have put Fedor versus Tim Sylvia in the UFC structure, it certainly would have sold more. So, I mean, it is to mixed success. It is a huge risk, but it's a risk they're willing to take. So, yes, Jones would go to another place and they would pay for it. They absolutely would.
I think if we even take the money out of it, right? The way Dana White behaved as a promoter of John Jones after that Ngannou fight was crazy. Like, you should be coming out and being like,
yeah,
Francis Ngannou, oh my God, look at this guy. Where the hell did we get this guy from? Nobody wants to fight this guy. Apart from one dude, John Jones, the greatest light heavyweight champion of all time. We really want to make it happen. We need to sit down with John and see if we can make that happen. Can you imagine how big that fight would be? That would be the biggest fight in the history of the organization. And you're just looking at him going, his first line about it is, he wants to move back down to 185. And everyone laughs. You're like, are you serious? Like,
yeah.
John Jones has been fighting the biggest killers in MMA since he's about 20 and beating the shit out of them. And now he's afraid. It's just...
You already know the game that's being played here. Try to make it sound like Jones is scared. So Jones gets up and says, "Oh no, I'm not scared. I'll take the fight.
I'll take 200,000.
Yeah, I'll take way less. I'll take it 20 and 20, and I'll fight Nate Diaz." That's the game. It's as old as the UFC's playbook. I mean, we've seen it for such a long time, and it's so frustrating because you can see it. And the fact that anybody buys into it, like the people that are commenting on your statuses about it, it's like, I think the UFC's right about this one. Or like, do you think the Jones is even worth that money? Like, of course he fucking is. And like, here's the thing too. You get the sense that UFC is probably wanting to pay him, so let's say it's 30 million. Let's just give it a nice round number that the Wilder money number is. They're probably wanting to pay him somewhere closer to 5. And he's like, well, at least meet me fucking halfway. Pay me 15.
Can we have a conversation?
Can we do this? And I guarantee you here, he's probably somewhere around literally a tenth of that. Somewhere, if he's getting 5 million, we're 3 million is a tenth. It's easy math here of 30 million. He's probably somewhere around a tenth of what Wilder's getting paid. If you look at his guaranteed contracts and things like that in the past, I mean, when has he even made 3 million on those guaranteed? The announced payouts is the word I'm looking for.
But that's the travesty of this situation. We're all talking about money when the real issue is like, this is brilliant. If this fight happens, it's fucking unbelievable. Like, this is the greatest fighter in the history of the UFC meeting a guy who now looks like an immovable object.
Yeah.
A guy who just went through and clinicked Stipe Miocic. And the whole fucking pay-per-view was sold on, the winner is going to fight John Jones. Literally the first word out of Dana White's mouth is, he's going back down to 185. Like, and you're like,
very
how many
accurate.
times does this have to happen? It's like the Habib thing. Like, it's like you're after telling us all before the Poirier v. McGregor fight, Habib is coming back. Straight after the fight, didn't see anything spectacular. What? It's just, at what point are we going to stop believing what these guys are telling us? Because that like isn't, it's just mad to me. It's crazy. Like, this is the biggest fight. This could be the biggest fight in the history of the heavyweight division. Like, it could go on for a long, long time where nobody can beat it. I think, honestly, if they go about this the right way, this can really, really be like a phenomenal pay-per-view. Like, I'm not trying to say it's going to beat Habib and Conor, because that was cultural war, all this shit. But I think it would be right close to the other pay-per-views that sold really well, that Nate Diaz and Conor and things like that.
Yeah.
Like that was a fight that really meant nothing apart from these two guys are huge personalities. This fight means so much. Imagine if John Jones beat him. Like, what? Just imagine, like, and if there's one guy that can probably beat a dude like Francis Ngannou, it's a dude like John Jones, who just knows how to do this in the moment, game planning, changing his style. he's unbelievable. That's something that we often overlook about Jones because of his checkered past. The guy is just an unbelievable fighter.
Yeah.
Like I can't think of a fight I want to see more right now, and that's the issue for me.
Jay Tivo had a point here saying that one of the problems is Jones isn't talking about a union, which would help him. But that's a problem as old as every star in the UFC. Everyone's had the opportunity to do that. You know, Conor was talking about wanting shares in the UFC after 205 and all this kind of stuff. Like GSP famously joined one for about 2 seconds with Mr. Mexico himself, Bjorn Rebney. I still don't even get what that tweet was about. But like people have talked about it, but the fighters haven't really done it. And like, I mean, if you want to talk about how it could happen, it would actually be pretty easy. Take the top 5 of each division. If you could somehow bind those all together, the UFC would be pretty fucked in terms of putting on events. The problem is, can you herd these cats together and tell them what to do? The solution on paper is pretty simple. You take away their earning potential by taking away their biggest stars, and their biggest stars saying, we're all going to bind together. But can you get them to do that? No. So yes, I agree with you, JT, but that would be the best thing to possibly do, is for somebody like a Jones and Ngannou to stand together. Ngannou wants this fight as well. He just did an ESPN pay-per-view. Yeah, he did an interview with Ariel where he was saying that he believes Jones wants this fight and he doesn't believe what the UFC is saying. Well, you could ideally bind together, but I don't know. It just seems to be something inherent with a sport that is so selfish in the first place. And I don't mean literally selfish, but in some ways, yes, there's the TJ Dillashaw's of the planet who would outright say that it was a selfish endeavor. But being a kind of a one-man thing, people don't tend to join up like they should. I think they tend to be solitary focused like the sport is. They tend to follow that model. And if you could just convince... I mean, even like what they had with Bjorn Rebney was pretty fucking great. They had GSP, they had Cerrone, 2 big stars there. They had Tim Kennedy at the time. TJ Dillashaw was actually in that, speaking of him, and I can't remember who the 5th person was. They had a pretty good thing, but it fell apart almost instantaneously. Probably had something to do with the fact that they had Bjorn Rebney, of all people.
It was Cerrone, right? Though he was the first to do a 180, like when he was
the first one to back out.
Yeah, and then it's like when it's like a chain. If one of the links gets loose, it's gone.
Yeah.
It just, like, really they'd need all the biggest earners. So the McGregor, Masvidal, Jones, Khabib, all of these guys to somehow all sit in the same room and get on like a house on fire and decide, let's meticulously go through the roster and convince them that this is what to do. Like, just the logistics of that alone, like the amount of time it would take, it's just... I feel like it's too far gone to be repaired unless something is wrote down in litigation,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why people are trying the Ollie Act for MMA. I really think it is something that we need to do a deep dive into, because I think one of the best parts about boxing is the Ollie Act, but one of the worst parts about boxing is the Ollie Act, because I think you need, I'll say this again and again, like I was saying earlier, you need that organizational structure. I do think you need that. You need the sport to be easily followed, and I think that helps. But you need to give the power to the fighters as well. There's no way they should be signing all these deals with all these brands, these clothing brands, these like billion-dollar deals with TV, all this kind of things, and just not getting a piece of it. It's just, yeah. So we'll see where things land, but feels like we're beating this argument down pretty hard. Somebody says, well, Jason in the NHL is a goalie. No. Sorry, what were you going to say? It's just a random comment.
Did I read it right that they said when this Reebok thing started, they said that the fighters would make a combined total of $70 million out of it. And then it was disclosed that they got paid between, I think it was 30 million, maybe $30 million was the payout in the end. And then I saw a journalist from Ireland talking about it, like, I can't remember who it was. It was a guy reacting to this sum of money he saw, 30 million. And he was like, Allen Iverson got 36 million off Reebok on his 55th birthday for like just an additional bonus. He hasn't played in 20 years. And they just went, oh, Allen, here's that money. Remember we wrote that in your contract? Yeah, there's this 36 million.
Obviously.
And you're like, so one...
Oh, good.
So one dude who hasn't played his sport in 20 years is getting the grand total of 4 or 5 years UFC payment. That is fucking mental. That is crazy.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is obviously the problem with that is Reebok hasn't sold anything that well. There are people out there like O'Malley where their stuff did sell pretty well, enough to where he made it a statement on Twitter, but not near the Allen Iverson, Jordan numbers, Tiger Woods, type kind of things with Nike. Nowhere near that. And I think that's obviously part of the problem there. I would say Allen Iverson is a unicorn case as somebody who can sell so much that Reebok's like, yeah, we'll give you $36 million on top of what you're making for us. I don't think anybody's made that kind of money for Reebok in the UFC, not even Conor. But I think that's because of a lot of these things that they try to do. Just like you saw the shirts with Conor that they try to do with the weird shoes and the pants on and the slick back hair. I get what they were going for, like some sort of claymation thing, and it made a bit more sense when you saw the commercial, but it was like, I don't know anybody that bought that. Like I certainly didn't buy it. So I think that's the problem too. It's not converted to sales.
They kept on saying like that, like the numbers in Ireland, like for these Reebok things were insane. I've never seen a single person in Ireland wearing a Reebok. Apart from if I'm literally in SBG watching Conor training. Like, I mean, the only time I've ever saw those jerseys sold was at the actual events.
Yeah.
And they were all like, Americans being Irish for the day wearing the t-shirt. That was it.
What is to the point to where, it's like a joke. It's like a meme. That Reebok kit in the wild. You never see one in the wild. You just never do, I
love when people put their own names on them. That's my favorite. I saw that in Vegas.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a thing you could do.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Oh, no.
I remember because they sent Ariel Helwani when they launched, right, with Helwani written on it. And then I just started seeing them in Vegas, like fighters that weren't definitely these second names weren't in the UFC. And it was like, yeah, you can just edit your own online and get it.
Wow. I think that is one way more positive thing about Venom is they're known for clothing. And Reebok certainly, it's not like they've only done shoes, but they've always been known as a shoe brand. And I don't remember any time in high school or, college, anything like that, ever seeing people even just walking around wearing Reebok clothing. I definitely remember it for Nike. They're a shoes brand that has converted over to clothing extremely, extremely well. But I can't think of any Reebok shirts that I've ever seen in the wild of somebody just wearing. Is anything clicking for you, Lawton?
I know, like shoes, I know they had the classics were big in Europe, the Reebok classic
shoes are great.
That was big. And obviously And One was Iverson's, right? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Was N1 a Reebok thing?
I'm probably wrong.
I remember when N1 was huge. Like, that used to be a thing. You'd be playing with somebody and they would shoot and they'd go N1 as soon as it would land. But N1 are they their own brand?
I think they might be.
Okay, I didn't know if they went through somebody else. We're definitely Pigskin podcast. I can't say it. I can't do it.
We'll go into the Reebok issue more on the Pigskin podcast this week.
And we'll tell you all about them. So yeah, it looked like N1 went into it for themselves, it looks like. But anyhow, if it sells well, then yeah, you'll get a cut of it. So that is the other side of it, to be fair. But yeah, obviously they were not matching anywhere near what those sponsorships were doing before, and it took a ton of money away from the fighters, and that's where a union would have come in and ties into the conversation. But let's see, we got another super chat from Luke Hennigan. Jones needs to realize he won't get McGregor money because he's nowhere near as big a draw. He only deserves a payday.
Why are you talking about McGregor money? Why is everyone always saying like he's not going to get McGregor money? He's not fucking asking for McGregor money. Do you know what I mean? Like McGregor money is like 100 million, 80 million. That's what he's getting from the Mayweather fight. Like
claimed 42 off of Cerrone. I don't know if that was true, but
he said 80 million for that as well.
Oh, he said 80.
But I mean, you know what I mean? But like he's asking for a fraction of that, a fraction. Yeah. So like, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing too. So what you need to realize, Luke, and I appreciate you popping in a 549 super chat in there. What you honestly do need to realize is that Conor isn't even getting true Conor money. If you compare it with other sports, Like if you compare Conor, what he's making in the UFC as opposed to what he would be making with boxing. And yes, I've made this point already numerous times about the UFC's power structure and how, there are organizational costs that simply aren't there for boxing. And I do think some of that is a good thing. But there needs to be a much happier medium in the center. Right now, it's a 75-25 relationship with the UFC right now. If you look at, so there have been numerous studies that have been put out there of what the UFC takes home versus what the fighters take home. And it's a small sliver of the equation. It's nowhere near half. Like in the NBA, it's much closer to half of what they're getting on everything. For the UFC, I don't want to put out the numbers out there without saying, but it's 25 or less from what I remember. I'm thinking it's a number closer to 10%. Somebody can correct me if they can look up those numbers for us, but it is nowhere near as high as it should be. So Conor McGregor money isn't even getting what Conor McGregor should be. He did in boxing, yes, but that was a unicorn example if there ever was one. I think it's something you should look into a little bit more, Luke. I appreciate your question. I appreciate you supporting the channel, but there's way more to it than that. Kieran Lands, 45 was the claim for a Cowboy. Yeah. Jason's got them whistling Oregon arms. Yeah, doing the most harm with the biggest arms, with the most charm or something like that. Around 18% says the Anvil. That sounds accurate. Whereas the NBA, it's closer to 50%. You know what I mean? Other major sports in the U.S. And this is much more about one person. It's not even the same, So you could look at a Jordan or somebody like that and look at how much they're making, but it's not even an individual sport. It's a team sport, So it's like you should be seeing that even more in an extreme case. And you are seeing it in boxing. You're not seeing it in MMA.
They were talking about 250 million each for Fury and Joshua for their fight. That is so far away from anything that anyone has ever made in MMA.
That's staggering.
It's like 10 times. Do you know what I mean?
I'm actually a bit confused by that because wasn't Mayweather talking about 400 million for that fight?
Oh yes, no, but I mean in MMA, Floyd's a billionaire. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. I think he made 350 million for they estimate among sponsors and everything else for the McGregor fight. He made something like 350 million, I think.
Yeah. So I guess, adding in the sponsors. But what were you talking about for the 250? Because if Mayweather was taking home for only 400 for a 4 million pay-per-view buy, so how are they able to justify 500 million being split between those two? If Mayweather sold that much better than they probably will. I don't think 4 million to be touched again for quite a while.
No, I don't think this will. I don't think I think it's a huge fight, but I think it will do over 1 million.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's if it touched 2 million, it'd be crazy. But it's a huge fight. Yeah. But I do think a lot of the money. Initially, when they were talking about the figures, it was going to come from Saudi Arabia because they were doing the events there.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
That was it's sports washing. It's pretty much what we saw on Fight Island,
Interesting. Well, we've gotten to a lot of great debates here today. I actually really enjoy this. So I might be wrong about this. I swear to God, I've seen studies that show the median number is higher in MMA. But, maybe we can talk about that next week and I can eat all the crow. Well, one of my favorite people that talk about this is his name is Hey Not the Face. I can never remember his real name, but he does a bunch of work with Bloody Elbow and the Body Lock, and he goes over. Yes, John Nash. So he's one of those people. So you want to talk about the antitrust lawsuit. You want to talk about all this stuff going on behind the scenes. He's the guy who's also reporting on One's earnings every year and how it looks like they're in a massive debt kind of. It's strange to look at, but this is the guy that I think has done that. And so anybody can correct me on that, and we'll address it next week. If I'm totally wrong on this, I'll eat crow in front of all of you and admit it. But I do believe that there have been studies that show that with graphs and numbers and statistics and figures. So we'll see what that looks like. But I think it's a fun conversation. I've really enjoyed having it with you guys, even if I disagree with you. Really enjoyed this discussion overall because it's obviously a massive issue within the sport of MMA that needs to be addressed. And John Jones is at the head of it. Enjoyed talking about all these topics. We're about to go get some lunch. PT probably has to take a shit. Enjoyed it. Anything?
Haven't we peeled before we started today?
I know. He's got to do it again. Did you have something to say there, Lon?
No. I think we're good. Is a lot of cool stuff happening. We got Capozes today.
Yeah, so we got Kapoza.
Ooh,
Yep, that's back again. The Extras channel, if you guys have not subbed to that channel, we are firing off all kinds of content there. We're kind of seeing this. I guess we're obviously there. I'm forgetting that we've already swapped this over there. So you can tell what we're doing. So if you haven't subscribed, then please do so. If you haven't liked this chat, please do so as well. Help us push this forward. And we got some big things planned here. I think, Pizzi, I think we're... as much good things as you're doing, I feel like we're underutilizing you. So I think that will start to ramp up over the next few months and things like that. So yeah, good stuff on the way. So appreciate you guys for joining us. Faith says we're on the Extras channel. Yes, I know. I made a mistake. I forgot that we're on the Extras channel. That's funny.
Oh shit, yeah.
As I'm like talking about it. But yeah, I really appreciate everybody. You guys are awesome. Have a ton of fun with these things. Enjoy the Composer's Corner later on today. We'll have a regular video up tomorrow, potentially working on a new piece here with Pizzi and the Rug situation and One Championship, getting some coverage there. Really good stuff. You guys are awesome. We will see you on the next live chat. Peace out, homies.